What's going on? Ian here with the Seek First Adventure, and today we're going to be talking about the frame. So as I've said in some of the other videos, the frame actually looks pretty good. You can see that there's definitely some surface rust and stuff like that, but really everything looks good. There is a couple outriggers, mainly the ones around the wheel well, that seem to have some rust issues where they're rusted through. I think there was like one up near the front and maybe one or two in the back. There's also a spot kind of right back there where the big hole is that has some rust through that needs to be addressed. But other than that, all the major structural parts of the frame look really good. The last thing I really need to pull out to get 100% is this back piece, which I'm going to probably work on getting that out today. So let's check out some of the spots in the frame, and I'll show you kind of what I'm working with and how everything's looking. Alright, so this right here is probably one of the worst spots that I've found structurally. You can actually see through and see the backside of that and out onto the belly pan there. And so I'm going to have to probably cut some of this out and replace some of the metal. Once I get everything off of it, I'll be able to fully determine that. We're kind of on the outside. I'm sitting in the wheel well currently, and this is probably one of the worst outriggers. You can see there's just a hole through it right there. The whole thing's pretty loose, so that one's definitely gonna have to be replaced. I think it's the same, not quite as bad on the other side, and then the ones over there seem to be slightly better. So obviously pulling the shell would be the easiest way to do all the repairs on the frame. It does present a challenge in that I have to build internal bracing for the shell, as well as either do a gantry lift where it's an arch over the shell and then use chains to lift it up, or lift it internally and then have cross beams that support it. Both ways work really well. I know people have replaced the subfloor without taking the shell off. The challenge is you have these C-clamps here that go around the wood, and they're riveted to the shell itself, and then they're bolted. The bolts are not the bigger problem. The challenge is getting the wood into the C-channel in one sheet, and most of the ones that I've seen where people do it without taking the shell off, they cut the they cut the subfloor that they're putting in half, so you have two segments that go in. That makes me nervous because you're losing some of your structural integrity of that wood, and that is part of the foundation of the AIRSTREAM. So I want to avoid that if at all possible. You know, no matter how it looks, it just doesn't seem like I'm going to get around pulling the shell off in some capacity, even if it's just jacking it up a little bit to be able to replace the subfloor and weld the spot in the back. But those are kind of my obstacles currently. I'm evaluating how I'm going to do all of that and coming up with a plan. I now have all of the subfloor out, which also means that all of the pink insulation is officially completely out of the trailer. It is just frame and shell and a little bit of subfloor just around the edges, but other than that, it is stripped down, so that smell is gone. It's amazing whenever you get that stuff out of there that it stops smelling so bad in here. So in fact, it doesn't smell like anything, which is fantastic. I can't smell right now anyway because it's Texas and ragweed and all the other wonderful allergens, but I now can fully evaluate the frame. I've been working on the plan on how I'm going to tackle that, so I wanted to finish up this first part of the frame restoration video series with sharing just kind of everything, what my plan is, what I'm going to use. I'm still finalizing a few things, but I have a pretty good idea of how I'm going to move forward with it. The two worst spots are in the back here. These have a tendency to leak in the back. Part of that is this plate that they stick. It goes in between the C-channel down under, and it attaches to all that. And the problem is whenever you put metal, steel, and aluminum together, you get corrosion. And all this back here is just really corroded badly. So I'm going to have to clean off the aluminum and fix that, but that also causes the leaks. And so on both of these support beams here, there's pretty bad rust through, like all the way through. So I'm going to be notching these out probably, and then welding replacement pieces in there. The other areas, I want to say there's like 4 or 5 outriggers that need replacement. I'm going to be replacing those, and I'll probably also be adding some strips of metal onto the outriggers to give those a little bit more support, just bolster them up a little bit, and that'll also kind of inhibit. Some of them have some rust, and that'll give them just a little bit more structure. There's some areas where I'm probably going to add some bracing to make the overall frame a little stronger. I'll probably do some bracing in the center where the axles are to give that a little bit more. Whenever I get into actually doing it, I'll show that. I'm still working on the design of everything I'm going to do. And so I want to make sure that those areas are really, really strong and can take the abuse. We're going to be, doing some backcountry camping with this, and so there may be some times we're going down some roads that aren't so great. We want it to really be able to hold up. We're also going to be doing an axle lift kit as well. I'm going to be wire brushing and grinding down the entire frame. It's going to be a big process, but to have this sandblasted, I mean, I've seen quotes going all the way up to like $2,000, and I'm not going to spend that. I'll just do it myself. And then once it has been all cleaned up and I've wire brushed and grinded the whole frame down, I'm going to be painting it with a rust inhibiting paint and then a chassis paint over that, or a top coat. I'm not sure exactly which products I'm going to go with. Still doing some research and finalizing that. I'm going to make those decisions and then talk about that in probably the next in this series. And then from there, once I do kind of the middle section, is whenever I'm going to detach and lift the shell. I don't have room to necessarily pull the frame out and put it somewhere else, so I'm going to lift it, replace the outriggers, fix the spots back here, and then grind the rest of those sections, and then paint all that, and measure, cut, install the subfloor, and then put the shell back down on it. A little bit more than that, but it's kind of a quick overview. And with that, it's going to be still a few months before I get to that with the paint. Most of them, it can't be over 80 degrees whenever you're doing it, and in Texas here, that's going to be late September, early October, so it'll be a little bit. There's still a bit of work I got to do. I want to try to seal a lot of the exterior of the shell so that once the floor is in, that it's not just getting soaked again. I want to finish rebuilding all the windows. I'm going to do a lot of riveting inside of the shell and just fixing a lot of those places that might be leaking. So once it's got the floor in and back down, then we're not going to have any issues of it getting wet immediately. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Maybe leave a comment. If you have any questions about what we're doing with this, or anything to do with the frame, or just any questions in general, you can leave a comment below and we'd love to answer that, or you can give us an email. There's an email in the link below. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram. We got photos up there and additional stuff, and we'd love to have you follow our journey on there. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. We got videos coming out every week on Friday. Trying to really keep up with that and make sure to be bringing you guys awesome content. We're going to be doing more stuff coming up about who we are, about why we're doing this, about why we want to be living full-time in this Airstream, and we'd love to have you join us and come along for the journey.